This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. Based on an extraordinary true story, Come From Away chronicles how the isolated town of Gander, Newfoundland, played host to the world. What started as an average day in a small town turned into an international sleepover when 38 planes carrying thousands of people from around the globe were diverted to Gander's airstrip on September 11th, 2001. The people of Gander cheered the stranded travelers with music, an open bar, and recognition that we're all part of a global family. This breathtaking musical is a true celebration of hope, humanity, and unity. Come From Away runs March 27th through May 10th at the Arvada Center. Tickets are available now at arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Good morning, producer Paul Caroli. Hi.
Hey, what's up, Bree? Good morning to you.
And we have a guest today, Adrian Felix. Welcome back. Hi.
Hello. Good morning. Happy to see both of you.
Good morning. Good morning. So today we're digging into a couple things. The city council's decisions on the Axon contract, the new surveillance technology that may or may not be coming to Denver. We're talking about Kwame Spearman and the Denver Book Society transition/debacle. And then we're going to talk about this video that I think went locally viral last week featuring Representative Diana DeGette. Let's start with the Axon contract because this is a pretty straightforward conversation. So Monday night, City Council delayed a vote on its contract, on the city's contract with Axon, which is a new surveillance technology company. This vote has been delayed one more week, which I noticed can only be for a week because the current contract with Flock actually expires on March 31st, which is next Tuesday. Councilman
They
Flynn...
could just let it lapse and just let those cameras hang out there.
This
is what Councilwoman
wondering.
Sarah Parody told me about. I talked to her about this like a few weeks ago, actually.
Yes, we
and
did.
she was like, there's no reason to rush. No, I'm saying I talked to her. I'm reporting this from my conversation with the
I thought
Councilwoman.
you were saying we talked about it.
She told me, she was like, there's no reason to rush this replacement. Like, sure, he wants to replace Flock with Axon, and like, I like that. That's her speaking. She was one of the bigger critics of Flock, but she was like, there's no need for these contracts to be directly abutting each other. We could take some time to talk out some principles that we might agree on, so we're not in a position of getting a contract last minute and then having to vote on something we maybe aren't fully bought into, which seems to be exactly what happened.
That's a good point, too, because honestly, I don't know why I was thinking like, yes, we didn't have this kind of surveillance technology, say 5 years ago. So it is not a requirement for the city to operate to have it. But
Exactly.
But what I found interesting is Parody is saying this to you. Kevin Flynn is the one that delayed the vote for a week. And initially he was on board with Axon. So I thought that was an interesting piece of this puzzle.
Well, I think it touches on this broader challenge that the mayor and the council are having working together, because the mayor wants to do his thing and then get the sign off and not really think too much about them, it seems. And the council is increasingly complaining about not being given the opportunity to participate in these negotiations. I mean, what was the other one they did? The VO, the scooter contract. It got to them so late before their scheduled vote that Amanda Sandoval, I think she delayed that one as well. So this is now 2 in a row of the same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Adrian, what do you think about this? Is this maybe sort of pulling back out? This is a conversation about council's relationship with the mayor.
Well, if you remember 2 weeks ago, this was my fail for the week.
That's right.
That I was like, they delayed it once, and I didn't believe that it was a done deal. It seemed like from the videos that I saw of their meetings, it seems like there was just a lot of pushback and a lot of like trying to get everyone on the same page, but not quite getting there. I do think that there is like a major disconnect between the mayor, who I'm sure is like frustrated because he just wants to get this done, over the city council, who I think like really just wants to dive deep into what this means for our community. And that would be the distinction.
Well, he would say the same about, he said he's been diving deep as well. He would just have a different perspective on that. I think the other interesting piece of this is when he announced that he was going to go with Axon for a follow-up and put a new contract to council for this, he didn't have to put this to council. He didn't have to do this at all.
Because it was under the price threshold that council usually
the
votes
contract
on.
amount was lower than that threshold to require council approval. He was doing this because he wanted their buy-in. He wanted it. So maybe there's also a question of the management of that process and that relationship.
I was going to say it's also a look that you would choose to go against something that clearly is controversial for Denverites. And this isn't just any old contract that city council would be signing. But I was trying to think, I was like,
well, controversial is that's a tough word. That's a loaded word. I mean, I think Denverites disagree. I mean, and we saw in some of the reporting from Monday night that, I mean, different people would say different things, but it sounded like the folks that signed up to get up to speak about this issue, it was split. It was not unanimous one way or the other. I mean, and also, I mean, of course, the people that self-select to go show up and speak to council are not representative of the whole community. But I mean, it's controversial, but that's different from it being divided. There's like real disagreements in the community over this. And I think that's also what we're seeing play out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say
he's not like overruling the majority. He's saying he thinks the majority does want ALPRs, license plate readers.
Well, but he did push through the flock thing under that $500,000 threshold before, so I do think that's what made it a little bit controversial. Was why we're having this conversation, was that maybe that brought it to attention of people that weren't paying attention to it before. And also, city council signs giant contracts every Monday.
Sure.
You know, I mean, that's are about spending the city's money, which is in part our taxpayer dollars. So,
yeah. And I think he would talk about the reason why the threshold exists. I mean, if these contracts are so minimal that they can get under that threshold that we have agreed is the level that city council should weigh in on, perhaps they're not of a significant enough impact to merit a citywide debate. Perhaps it is just a small pilot program that the mayor does get to have privilege to make a decision on. I mean, that's the law. That's how we've arranged the law.
Yeah. Adrian, I don't know. Sorry. I've lots of thoughts here.
I will give credit where it is due. Like, if he didn't have to ask council for like their opinion on this, or for them to like co-sign in a sense, that like it is good that he has chosen to be inclusive of their voices, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Because then now you've added a bunch of personalities, and like these people are really the ones that like get in front of the community and hear public comment, that you're going to hear that like level of pushback. So I think that maybe the strategy is like, I was inclusive, but at the end of the day, we're going to do what I want, which, you know, may be what happens here.
Yeah, to me, I guess the dollar amount is interesting because it seems to be actually more of a conversation about, do we want to be surveilled or not, and where that data goes. So, I mean, I understand the point of those dollar amounts because, again, council signs off on these things all the time. If we had to go through every single one, it would take even longer than city council meetings already go. But I think that this just proved to be a really serious thing for a lot of Denverites on both sides of this, folks who feel both ways about it, you know, that are like, yes, I see this as a safety measure, and people that say, I see this as a privacy issue. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see what happens in a week, I guess, what the findings are.
We'll have to circle back.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking bookstore drama. Hey, did you know CityCast Denver has a perks program? Every week, we're highlighting some standout deals from our favorite businesses in town to help you support local and save some money. It's a win-win. Here's a highlight from this week. Coming to Denver or planning a staycation? Reserve your Mile High Experience box with Green Door. Choose edibles or flour, plus Colorado-made snacks and travel essentials, ready for pickup at our trusted local dispensary partner. Everything you need to elevate your trip and enjoy local experiences. And you can use our code DenverPerk for $10 off. These businesses are offering deals to CityCast readers and listeners because they know you're the most engaged and passionate Denverites. To see a full list, just visit denver.citycast.fm/perks. It's a great way to check out new restaurants, shops, and events in your city without breaking your budget. And I love that for you. And by the way, if you have a local business, you can offer your deals on our perks page too. Visit denver.citycast.fm/perks to learn more today.
Hi, CityCast listeners. This is David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, but I also have another job. I'm one of the hosts of the Political Gabfest, Slate's politics podcast. Every week, I get on mic with my co-hosts Emily Bazelon and John Dickerson, and we talk about politics and a lot more about other things that we care about. The Gabfest has been going for more than 20 years because the three of us love talking to each other, and we have an amazing community of listeners. If you like the open-hearted, curious way CityCast approaches cities, I think you'll like the Political Gabfest too. Stream it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
Okay, we're back. So over the weekend, it was announced that Kwame Spearman and the Denver Book Society at 17th and Humboldt will be parting ways after what Denverite, I thought, interestingly called a social media explosion over his legacy in Denver. This news comes a month after the store opened, and at that point was very willing to put Kwame front and center in this conversation. Now, I do just want to read this quote from the press release from Rich Garvin, who is actually the sole owner. He said in a press release, quote, "I initially valued the perspective he brought to the project," meaning Kwame. "However, over time, it was clear that his continued involvement was not aligned with the direction or needs of Denver Book Society. At that point, I made the decision to end the working relationship. I acknowledge that this decision should have been made earlier." I don't know. I don't know where you guys want to start. What did you think about this latest?
I've known Kwame Spearman for a few years now. He is one of those like political figures that once you like get into his politics, you're kind of like really grossed out by him. But on a personal level, like he's totally fine. Like he's a great guy. He's easy to get along with, but his politics are terrible. And remember, this is like a twice candidate because he ran, I believe, for mayor one year, and then he ran for DPS and lost both.
Later
and
that same year. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of that is because of his politics. Like they're just not popular in Denver.
Well, yeah, I would say this was at least part of the pushback or the blowback that was brought up forth in this social media sort of frenzy that's been alluded to, is that folks dug up an old KNUS interview that he did in 2023, I believed, where he was basically supporting ICE's involvement in Denver here. And 9 News, I think, pointed to that also. So I think that seemed to be the point of contention for a lot of folks with him.
Yeah.
I don't know, Paul, what did you think?
To me, this is part of the trend we've been seeing for the last year and a half of people really, really, really want to shop at businesses that they feel are aligned with their values.
Right.
And when people dug up some quotes from Kwame Spearman that showed that his views on ICE were out of step with the moment. I mean, and what a moment to be out of step with over the last few weeks. I don't know about you all, but the number one trend in local restaurants right now is ICE out posters on the front door. Mm-hmm. Like this is the cause du jour to be on the wrong side of in Denver is like, I mean, that's a business killer. We saw it 2 weeks ago. Like they had this big flashy opening for a bookstore. It's a gorgeous bookstore. You go in there, it's a great product. It's very slick. It's comfortable. It's cozy. And then you learn about this guy and it's like, oh, wait a minute. He said some stuff about ICE. Uh-oh. Like, of course, if you're Rich Garvin, you got to protect your business. You got to separate from this guy. And like,
sure.
I don't know. I mean, I do think that broader trend though is the one to watch of like, what are we going to see next? Like whose terrible politics are going to come to light next? What beloved local business will fall when their owner turns out thinks life begins at conception?
Well, 2 things I want to say to that. One, I think it goes a little bit beyond just this part of the conversation. Denverite reported that David Back, who was at one point owner of the Tattered Cover with Kwame, said, quote, "Kwame badly mistreated an extremely dedicated and loyal Tattered Cover staff. He is a bully who makes himself feel big by making others feel small. Kwame thought he was the captain of the Titanic, but actually He was the iceberg. So I just want to add that context because
what's weird quote also.
I thought it was hilarious.
The captain was the one who made the mistake. The captain is the one who had the agency in the story of the Titanic and failed to put in place systems to detect the iceberg and avoid it.
Clearly, David Back did not go to the immersive Titanic experience that you and I did, Paul.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
where we relived that moment.
In this. I think the iceberg is Amazon. Now that I think about it for another second, the iceberg is e-commerce. If the tattered cover is the Titanic.
Well, I want to say to this comment, though, he's also framing Kwame as someone who's kind of a villain to bookstores, because if there was an untouchable brand at one point in Denver, and not that Joyce Meskis, the founder of Tattered Cover, was not without her own controversies, for sure. But I think it's also a component of this conversation is that people are very protective of their local, how they feel about these places. And he, according to some folks, did not treat the folks that worked there well. So I think that's part of it. Adrian, go ahead. I have one more point, but go ahead.
Well, my question about that is was that something that had come to light while he was running for office? Because I don't remember any kind of media that I saw that had talked about this, that's what was going on in terms of his treatment of coworkers. So that's news to me. That's actually kind of shocking.
That came out, I think, before the mayoral run, because he stepped away from Tattered Cover to run for mayor,
yeah,
and then run for city council a few months later.
Well, he was nice to me; those poor employees.
I mean, we contain multitudes.
I've heard from a lot of folks it was a tough place to work. Oof. I think that he gets probably painted with the failure of the Tattered Cover. He gets blamed for that and the business going down. I feel like that's maybe not fair to Kwame, because the business was not doing great when him and his investor group bought it. It was, also it's a bookstore in the age of Amazon. It's it was a long shot. I think if you can say one thing about Kwame, it's that he loves bookstores and wants to run a bookstore business in Denver.
Truly. Yeah. I just thought that was a important piece to point out, that I don't think it was just the conversation about ICE, although that figures very prominently. But Paul,
I think it was. A few weeks ago, I remember all the chatter. No one was talking about labor at Tattered Cover. I mean, those of us in the know who remember those stories knew.
I was I was getting a lot of DMs about that.
3 weeks ago, ICE.
So that's what I heard when this first had happened, was that that his comments in particular about ICE were the ones that really brought this forward. But what a strange thing is how far your politics will follow you, because this was years ago.
I mean, receipts. We are in the era of receipts. This is not. I think about this all of the time when you want to go back to 1994 and find something that someone said. Sometimes you got to dig really, really far to find it. And now you can Google search. And if you know the right key terms, you can find that thing.
I mean, this is 2023. This is not ancient history.
No, not at all. I'm just saying, in general, it's really easy, to find stuff. But Paul, I want to respond to something else that you said, which was people supporting businesses that reflect their values. I personally, from a personal perspective, think that folks, myself included, feel very frustrated by the things that we cannot control when we need, say, I don't know, is there an ethical place that sells affordable toilet paper? That can be really hard to find. You know what I mean? Things we can't control. We can't control Walmart. It doesn't, if we boycott Walmart, maybe if enough of us do, it matters, but I don't know, their shareholders are doing fine. So I think folks are looking sometimes to these smaller businesses where it seems like I can make an impact by saying, yes, I will or will not shop there. And I just think it's a larger ongoing frustration for folks in the world that we live in and how we have to function under capitalism. So I agree with you that it's a conversation about values, but I also think it's born out of frustration for not being able to control other things.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So
that makes sense. I understand why it's happening.
Something else. I just wanted to read this one quote from. So Kwame Spearman actually wrote an op-ed for Westword about this quote transition, and he said, "quote This transition is not a change in direction; it is the completion of the original plan." And Spearman wrote, describing Garvin as the sole owner and financial investor. I don't know if it was presented as the original plan. That doesn't
Which really makes you wonder, well, why were those interviews with Kwame at the launch of the bookstore? Why was he the face of this thing from the beginning?
That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
And who was not asking him, exactly what is your title? What is your role? Is your role with this bookstore consultant? because he has called himself a founder.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes gets testy with like, who is a founder? There's legal cases over this with some of these big tech companies. Who gets to be called a founder? But like, why didn't we know this at the launch? I mean, maybe that's just Kwame being Kwame. He knew people were asking him because they recognized his name.
Sure.
Hey, can I interview you about your new bookstore? And he was just like, yes, I'd love to talk to you about my new spot.
Did Rich Garvin not Google Kwame Spearman Bookstore to see how things went prior to this launch? Because he seemed to be down with it at the beginning, was like, yeah, this is me and Kwame are doing this thing together. And I have my own suspicions around why Rich Garvin put this person forward. But
why?
I mean, you're trying to present yourself as an open space for all of the community. You're going to put a Black man forward who's Denver rooted. Like, there's a lot in that identity that I think would lend to some folks' idea of like, oh, this is a credible space. But I don't know if that guy looked clearly. Did he not just look deep enough and say, oh, actually, maybe Kwame's a little bit more complicated of a person to put in this position to speak for quote, my bookstore. I don't know.
That's possible. Garvin's an Aspen guy, is what, according to this thing Kwame wrote in Westward. Garvin is he volunteered on a board for some reading program called Aspen Words. And I guess he was also with Opera Colorado and the Denver Art Museum's annual fund leadership campaign. Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's not involved in stuff. But I guess what you're saying though about like hypothetically, if he wanted to put a face on his brand that gave people the right feelings, that kind of also plays into this conversation about like what people have wanting to shop places that reflect their values. Because him as a businessman, he understood that in this hypothetical and made a decision accordingly. He just played the game and lost.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about this is absolutely a conversation that folks have all the time, myself included. Is like, who owns this store? Like, can I support a community member of color that's doing something? Can I support the LGBTQ community by supporting this particular bookstore or store or restaurant or whatever? And like, I don't know. I think it just gets a little bit more complicated when you look deeper into who that person might be. In this case, like, don't know if this was the best spokesperson for a bookstore,
Well, I think it's a matter of perhaps, like I said, it was 2023, but it feels like lifetimes ago. So my thought would be like, people have forgotten, like he's no longer a candidate. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is like something that he has like chosen to leave behind by not being a candidate. And so like his politics shouldn't be at the forefront. But if we're at a place where you are looking to see who is a part of this, then of course it's going to come bite you. But there's no way he didn't know, because it's like
that's what I'm just
that was everywhere. Kwame was a very like interesting mayoral candidate to watch, because it was just like controversy after controversy.
And then he ran.
He was the only one that dropped out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he didn't even tell his own staff that he was doing that.
Well, Alex Valdez, I remember, dropped out too. He didn't make it to the.
I don't even think he made it to that phase. I don't think he announced and then he didn't like get signatures or something. He didn't get on the ballot.
He got $50 out of me and didn't end up on the ballot. So thanks.
I also just want to say Kwame ran for school board.
Yes.
At a time when the school board was high level drama / turmoil, there was a lot of eyes on it.
The thing about that race is that he moved left. Like he was like, okay, I think I was too conservative of a candidate for Denver when I ran for mayor. And I remember like very specifically, like, and that's why we became good friends, is because I'm a leftist. And so he was asking me questions and how do I feel? And so he was trying to transition his politics. So I'll give him credit for that. But sometimes people just don't forget or let you move on.
I have a feeling this is not the last we will hear from Kwame Spearman.
He did get destroyed in that school board race, for the record. I think he got like 26% of the vote.
Yeah, I was trying to remember.
Look it up specifically.
Yeah, I was like, who won that seat? I don't even remember. And I feel like at that time I probably knew everything about the school board because it was in the news like every day.
Well, and I was beefing with all of them at that time. I can't even tell you.
Twitter fighting with all of them.
All of them.
Oh, Paul, actually, before we go, though, you actually went to, I've not been to Denver Book Society. I cannot speak to it other than the photos make it look absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's pretty.
What did you think of the bookstore?
It's like tattered cover except with red instead of green.
Lovely.
It's the same.
Vibe is the same. Feels
it's nice.
similar.
Yeah,
I mean, I love going to tattered cover.
Great space, it's beautiful. I mean, it's really nice. They got a little patio. They could use some sunshade on the patio on 17th Avenue.
Too sunny.
If I'm gonna nitpick, but I had a good time.
Okay, well, we're gonna take one more break, and when we come back, we're talking about a very local, very viral video. Okay, we're back. Again, we're talking about a video that went viral last week, which was filmed at Cohesion Brewing at York Street Yards. There's a lot going on here. Paul, can you explain who was in the video and what was going on at this? Why was what was going on at this brewery for this video to be filmed?
Yeah, I mean, I know what was happening because I did a little bit of digging, but I think for like most people who saw the video, if you didn't see the video, what the headline it mostly is going around the internet with is Representative DeGette gets heated with constituent over Israel support. But what you watch is a confrontation between a person who identifies as a Denver resident, a constituent, and a delegate with Democratic Party delegate, and then she asks some like really pointed questions and maybe makes some very pointed arguments with Representative DeGette about military aid to Israel, and Diana DeGette tries to answer and is calm and then not so calm. And then as the conversation, they talk past each other basically for a few minutes. Both of them seem to get a little bit upset and frustrated. And then the constituent, her name is Nicole Shea Niebler, she just bails. She just storms out, and Diana DeGette, and this is the screenshot you might have seen, puts her hand on Nicole Shea's shoulder to try to like say, no, I'm trying to finish explaining to you why my policy is what it is. I've thought about this. I want to talk about it. But Nicole Shea doesn't want to hear it, walks out. And so, it's like, did Representative DeGette gets physical with constituent is kind of the takeaway a lot of people are having on the internet.
Adrian, as a man of the internet, what did you think when you saw this video?
She's feeling the heat because she is. Like the assembly process, from what I hear, she's like 8 delegates away from not even making the ballot, which is kind of crazy. Like the preference poll that happened at the county assembly was the first time that she had ever lost the preference poll. And that determines like the allocation ultimately of delegates. And so when CD1 assembly meets, if her delegates aren't there and she falls below 30, she will not be nominated by the Democratic Party to the primary. And there's obviously the way of going about it by getting signatures, but to be that close, right? You could tell that a lot of the frustration in that video is coming from a place of, I just got my butt kicked at Denver County's like Democrats assembly.
Paul, I think when this video surfaced, we talked a lot about it internally and sort of were examining it. And you felt that like we weren't getting the full picture of the video here, right? It came across as edited, which happens all the time. I don't know. What do you think about?
That is what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, just talk more about that.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people sharing it and a lot of people taking things away from it. And I watched it and I was like, well, I don't know what to think about this because I don't know what actually happened. Because it was so clearly edited so heavily to make Diana DeGette look terrible.
So I disagree with that. I think very much that like the point of contention in the video beyond any of the dialogue is her saying, if you believe in this that strongly, then don't vote for me, which is why she chose to walk away. So it's like, it's not just a dialogue. Don't vote for me. That is a good enough reason for me not to vote for you. And to me, there's like no other way to like contextualize don't vote for me. Like if that's what it is.
I'm not sure I understand your point.
You're saying that moment is like highly edited, but the takeaway point is Diana DeGette doesn't want people who want like a free Palestine, who want genocide to stop, who want us to stop arming Israel, not to vote for her. There's no way that's like an edited context. That's what happened.
Well, let me explain to you how, because I got the unedited video and I happen to know a lot about how military aid to Israel works, because this was my job for 5 years. I studied every piece of legislation that went through Congress related to Israel and Palestine. And the big part of that job is the two big appropriations and authorizations bills that get passed every year, or odds are more often not get passed. That's why we have these shutdowns. But so that's like when I was hearing Diana DeGette talk about this, I heard her explaining her position. She was telling this Nicole Shea her position, which has changed in the last couple of years in ways that Nicole Shea, I think, would have appreciated had she not completely missed. Like it was a total missed connection. That's what I saw. I mean, Diana DeGette was not responding to Nicole Shea on the level of values and like the real intent that Nicole Shea was bringing when it comes to this question. I think Diana DeGette, what I saw in the video was, I think she was a little bit intimidated. I think Nicole Shea was very nervous. I mean, I talked to Nicole Shea yesterday. She said she was very nervous. She was very anxious. You can see it in the video. That nervous energy, like if you're a politician right now in 2026, you don't know what energy people are coming to you with. And Nicole Shea Niebler told me yesterday, she calls Diana DeGette's office every week. So they know,
they're probably familiar with her.
They're probably familiar with her. They probably are aware that this is a person who has a strong feeling about Diana DeGette. And so when they see someone like this coming very nervous, very anxious, they don't know what kind of energy this is, the staff like circles up on her. Nicole Shea Niebler then senses this as well. She tells me she could see the staff closing in and she was kind of freaking out. Like the communication completely broke down because of the tension around this disconnect that is a real thing happening in politics right now around Diana DeGette, especially around this issue. I mean, there's young people, especially young people, are changing their minds about the U.S. relationship with Israel. And they feel like folks like Diana DeGette have been too slow to adapt. But here's what I'm saying. Had Nicole Shea Niebler listened to what Diana DeGette said, and had we gotten the chance to listen to it in an unedited video, we would have all learned what I'm about to tell you now, which is Diana DeGette's policy on military aid to Israel is totally different than it was before October 7th. As of the most recent NDAA, and that phrase is where Nicole Shea Niebler totally lost Diana DeGette. Diana DeGette says NDAA, and then everyone else tunes out. NDAA means National Defense Authorization Act. That's where Congress authorizes the programs that they are going to then appropriate money for later in the year in the appropriations bill. So that's a key place where you establish policy programs, like what you're okay with doing, basically. So last year, and this is what DeGette says, the Republicans included an amendment in this bill that stated, in response to the European Union cutting all military aid sales, weapon sales to Israel, the Republicans put in a bill, an amendment that said, for everything that the Europeans don't do, the U.S. needs to make it up. We need to give Israel all those weapons. And so Diana DeGette voted no on the entire bill because she opposed that provision. And her new policy, which is reflected in that vote, is no offensive weapon sales to Israel. Yes to defensive weapon sales, which means the Iron Dome missile defense system, which is the batteries that shoot down the little PVC rockets that Hamas lobs from Gaza. So she says probably yes to Iron Dome, no to offensive weapon sales. That's her current policy. And that's a big change.
I feel like you should be in comms for the DeGette office, Paul. Do you feel
I know, right? Yeah.
I mean, do you just feel like this is the message that she didn't get out adequately to folks that would support her if she was more vocal? I don't know, Adrian, what do you think?
See, the thing of that is that like, you know, that is DeGette's position. But then there is a candidate in that race, Malat Kiros, who says no, that the defensive part of it should also be taken out. And I think that like people see weapons. I mean, you know, in this country, you know, how often guns are used as a defense thing when they're often used about defense or offense. I mean, it's like the same concept. I think a lot of people, and especially young people, are choosing not to see that there is a difference between offensive and defensive capabilities. Like, it's all weaponry. It's all about war. It's all about, you know what I mean? Like the tragedies that are happening.
Well, you brought him a lot.
I take your point. I mean, the fact that the United States and Israel co-produced this Iron Dome missile defense system, I mean, that some people would say, I mean, the folks that I used to hang out with on this Palestinian rights advocacy world would say that supporting defensive weaponry for Israel allows them to take more offensive positions in other ways.
They do, and they certainly do.
Speaking of Melat Kuros.
Yeah, I was like, I want to bring up the other folks in this race because you reached out to Melat and you reached out to Wanda James, who's also running. What did you hear, Paul?
Yes, because I'm interested in their policy positions because I know the narratives, but I don't think people know the positions. Diana DeGette's position, pretty actually interesting. Melat Kuros' position. I don't support any military aid without conditions, specifically the end of genocide in Palestine, an end to Israel's attacks in Lebanon, and an end to the war in Iran that Israel dragged us into. Our aid is our leverage, and it's our responsibility to ensure we use it to protect human rights, not to fuel more violence and war. So I asked her what would constitute an end to the genocide in Palestine, according to her, if that's one of her conditions for military aid. And she says, an actual ceasefire, immediate delivery of aid and medical services to all injured, and a concerted plan to rebuild Gaza led by Palestinians.
Okay.
She's not saying anything about a two-state solution, a one-state solution. I mean, the traditional policy points. This is interesting to me too, because the way she's talking is the way that like Nicole Shea Niebler and a lot of the younger activists are talking. They're trying to pull it back to those points of like values and like human rights, violence, war. Like you can see again the disconnect between Diana DeGette, who is so steeped in the policy, who's had every fight around military aid for the last 30 years and been lobbied by all the different groups all across the spectrum every day, wanting her to vote a certain way. And then Melat Kuros comes in and she can just speak directly to these young people who have been activated in the last couple of years with a much more broad, much less specific, like, I'm not sure how to action on what policy she's actually talking about here. I don't know what she would do. Like, what is the bill here that she would run? How would she change military aid to Israel, the relationship? I don't know.
But I do think you're right. She's responding not just to young people, but the fact that we can see now more than ever the effects of war. It's everywhere on I just saw something on social media that has rattled me to my core again today, involving this and involving the torture of a child in front of his parent, like awful stuff. So I see where Melat is responding to that, but I see what you're saying, Paul, is like, this is also a seasoned politician who knows the inner workings of the budgets and how the government actually deals with these things. And they are they're the same conversation, but they're not addressing the same things.
Yeah. So if what Denver wants is a representative that is going to make a principled stand on incremental changes, who's going to be in the room, who knows the policy and can talk to everybody, Diana DeGette's the person. Melat Kuros is not going to be that person who leads the conversation on these policy notes. She's going to be playing catch up. She's not going to be a committee chair if the Democrats retake Congress.
The thing about that is that it makes it seem like Diana DeGette is like irreplaceable, and I just don't think that's the case. I think lot of what is
not trying to say that.
Well, but I feel like a lot of what's happening is like we are ready for a different generation to become those people. And the only way that like a Melat Kuros can be that person is if she's sitting there at the table as a congressperson, and that's a good thing. I'm a firm believer that Diana DeGette at this point should want to pass the torch. But, again, eight delegates away and it could all be gone.
I just want to ask if you heard from Wanda James, who is the other candidate in this race and also is, I believe she's a veteran.
No, Wanda James did not get back to me.
Okay.
I asked her the same question. What's your policy on military aid to Israel? She did not get back to me.
Okay.
I think she's too busy collecting signatures.
She delivered, actually. She delivered 3,000 signatures. Yeah, I emailed her about it last week. Yeah, so then she submitted more than twice the amount that would be required to get on the ballot through that route, but they haven't been verified yet. I don't think that happens till May.
See, that's the race I want. It's like, let's get rid of Diana because she's done it for 30 years, and then let's nominate Melat, and then it would be her against Wanda, and then that would be interesting because it's really about change. Like, this is a new congressional person that we would have. That'll be interesting.
One more thing I don't know if we talked about, Paul, is who this the woman in the video, Nicole, What group is she with?
Nicole Shea Niebler.
Yes.
She is a hub coordinator with the Sunrise Movement, which is the group that in 2017, 2018 created the Green New Deal. But since the Green New Deal kind of became a non-starter politically, they've shifted to anti-authoritarianism, according to Nicole Shea Niebler. And that was the auspice in which she was appearing at that event. She became a delegate, and so she was getting text messages from all the candidates. And one of them was an invitation to Cohesion Brewing, where Diana DeGette would be talking to delegates.
Well, if she's listening, reach out, girl, because we could be besties. She's like into my kind of politics, which I like. You go, girl.
So what are we watching for next, Paul? We have another. What's the next
March
step
27th.
here? Yes.
March 27th is when we find out if these 8 delegates that Adrian talked about will actually show up and vote for Diana DeGette or not. It's a real long shot that folks don't show up. I mean, odds are everything is going to be shipshape and all 3 of these people are going to be on the ballot.
And this is a gathering in Pueblo, right, Paul?
This one's happening on Zoom on March 27th, Friday night.
Okay.
A little Friday night entertainment for the politics heads out there. And then, March 28th is the state assembly in Pueblo, where a bunch of the other races are going to be settled.
Okay. Well, again, midterms consistently keeping us on our toes. Well, Paul, Adrian, this was really interesting. Thank you both so much.
Yes.
See ya.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Denver Book Society sole owner Rich Garvin about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our morning newsletter at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye.